All right. It's the witching hour, or the Water Quality Management Committee, a half hour, whichever we'd like to call it. We're gonna work on getting through tonight's agenda fairly expeditiously. There's a precinct meeting at 6 o'clock in West Falmouth, and there's another one at 7 o'clock at 3, so a couple people want to be able to get to there. So, first item on the agenda is a pretty straight up and down article. This board has never voted to support Article 15. And I think it's something we should do. I'll entertain discussion.
I move that we support.
You want to make a motion?
Yes,
It simplifies it, right?
Go ahead.
I move that we support it as written.
Okay.
then I'll second that motion. But that then lays the groundwork for the
Then
discussion.
I'll open up, I'm working on Robert's Rules of Order. I read it last week. It's fascinating. It was written by an
You need to
Englishman.
get a life.
Anyways, it has to be to whether or not we should vote. Go ahead.
Can I make a? I'm a little confused. 2 weeks ago, I think you gave envelopes with names to call for people to support this article. Wasn't that like ahead of the game? Shouldn't you just vote first and then do that and call people to support it?
He has ESP.
So I think I just made a joke about Robert's Rules of Order, so maybe I don't always go down the exact right path. I distributed the names of town meeting members to these board members for them to contact them to see if they had questions or concerns, okay? And in support of it. I also have realized between then and now that we've never taken a formal vote, so that when people are on town meeting floor to say who supports it or doesn't support it, this board needs to make a formal vote.
Yeah, it would have been good to do that before calling town meeting
On the
members.
next phase of the sewers, Hilda, I'll make sure to do it ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Matt?
I just wanted to say, since we're voting on this tonight, maybe it's time that this board realizes that, you know, this article isn't ready. Maybe we should vote this down and rework this next phase of sewer. I'm not against it. I just feel like there's work that needs to be done. I've been talking with Mass DEP. We've heard this board and Amy Lowell say multiple times, especially during the design and construction engineering at the last town meeting, where they said, we need to have a place to discharge this
You're talking to the article.
I am
itself.
talking to the article.
But what we have in front of us is a vote of this board to support the article or not. Are you advocating that this board not support the article?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And let me finish why. So the town of Falmouth's wastewater discharge permit calls out clearly that if the town of Falmouth is going to exceed 80%, they need to have a plan submitted to Mass DEP to explain to Mass DEP how they're going to remediate not going over their 100%.
So I'm gonna advise you that it's not if, it's when.
Well, isn't this, so,
The permit, I do believe I would have to get a copy of it, but I don't believe it says if, I believe it says when. When you exceed 80%, you have to produce a plan.
but the point I'm getting at before I was interrupted is that the town of Falmouth already knows with this section of sewering, with the discharge that they've added since the last section of sewering, we're going to be at 88%. And we haven't even calculated in the businesses yet. So we're at 88%. So we know this section of sewing is going to be at 88%. So part of a remediation plan, with my discussions with Mass DEP, would be the town would have to say, we're not going to hook up any more properties. But if we're at 88% and we're going to charge a betterment to those homes and businesses, and then we say, oh, we have too many properties, we're gonna exceed our discharge permit. Now you have to explain to properties that you already bettered that they can't hook into this sewer. So what I'm saying is, we should find out exactly how many properties, what percentile, go to Mass DEP and say, hey, we want your approval to hook this many properties in, since we already know we're gonna exceed 80%. That's my comment. You can do with it as you wish, but I'm just saying is this is gonna come back to bite you in the ass. And all the people in Falmouth, I'm just asking you as this board, protect the people of Falmouth, and let's find out these answers before we sue her. Thank you.
So, Matt, when we hit 80%, we're very cognizant of the numbers you just, articulated relative to flows. When we hit 80%, the town is going to notify DEP and provide them a plan for how they're going to address flows beyond the 80%.
We can argue about this all day.
We'll either be in the midst of an outfall, or we'll be in the midst of permitting additional sand beds. That's where we're at, okay? So we are aware of the 80% requirement in the permit and the need to make sure that we manage the flows going forward. Yes. Go ahead. Sure.
Hi, hey, Ron Zwag, Precinct 1. Just following on what Matt was saying, we will be moving, if this is approved, according to Ms. Lowell, our wastewater superintendent, if Article 15 is approved, we would begin construction, the town would, according to the implementation plan, in the fall. At which point, the sewer system would be under construction, the expansion into the Great Pond Phase 1. And
You're talking to whether or not we should approve.
I'm just, yeah, I'm just.
Are you opposing us voting to approve Article 15?
I would say that, again, as Matt said, I'm not opposed to the concept of it, but we need to.
Not at this time.
But
So
not
you-
at this time.
You think this board, your suggestion to this board is that we not vote a recommendation to support Article 15?
Yes.
Okay.
That's for one point. Okay, so there's a question.
That is the question on the floor, whether we should
I know,
support this or not.
right, okay. But the reasons that I feel that this isn't the time to approve it, the second reason, outside of this one, which is critical, because if we start constructing something that we can't use, then there's a problem. The next point is that the town is measuring, apparently, the phosphorus concentrations in the groundwater downstream of the wastewater treatment facility. And the concern about that, it's in the discharge permit, that the town needs to monitor that to see what levels and how it's changing, because it could impact downstream surface waters.
Trying to follow you, how does this relate to Article 15?
Like Crocker Pond or Herring Brook. And I've written to Ms. Lowell 3 times in the past few weeks requesting that data to see what the trend is on the phosphorus, whether it's going up, going down, what's happening with it? Is it stable?
Ron, how does this relate to Article 15?
Article 15 is that you are planning to discharge more water, more treated effluent into.
Not more than we're permitted, though.
No, not.
More than we're permitted.
I don't know about that.
So if I'm a developer downtown,
No.
and I want to have 5,000 gallons of flow, is it the same point you're trying to make?
No, my point is this, is downstream of the wastewater treatment facility, phosphorus is being emitted from our wastewater treatment plant into the groundwater that is flowing westward toward Crocker Pond, which is a freshwater pond where phosphorus is a limiting factor to controlling water quality, as well as Herring Brook.
Ron,
And the que-
I'm
so the-
really trying to get you back. You're talking about the wastewater plant's discharges in Crocker Pond We're talking about Article 15.
Right, Article-
And
Article-
I'm trying to find the connection.
Okay, well, can I ask you a question?
Go right
Where
ahead.
will the effluent go from from the construction of the wastewater treatment plan under Article 15?
From the construction under Article 15 and any other ongoing construction within the sewer service area will be going to West Falmouth until such time as we hit 80% of our flow and have to come up with a revised plan, whether it's an outfall or additional sand beds. So that's where we're at. We have a permit. What you're saying is basically you want the permit to be frozen at the number that it's at because of phosphorus, which does get broken down in the soil stratum and that we've been monitoring for years. You're hypothesizing something that I'm not sure exists.
No,
And that doesn't have anything to do with this article.
It does exist. And it is part of this article because it is an impact from the expansion. It's more wastewater, treated wastewater, being entered the groundwater in the area that is to be monitored. Can you tell me what the current phosphorus levels are at each well?
I'm not sitting here tonight.
No, you have to, you need to know
Well,
that.
just say whatever you want to say. When you get done, we'll go to the next person and hopefully we'll get through tonight's meeting. I did not realize we were going to discuss phosphorus to Crocker Pond tonight. I don't see that on the agenda, but now apparently it is.
Well, I'm talking about Article 15. Article 15 has a proposal to extend the wastewater treatment collection system into the Great Pond Phase 1. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. Will that increase the volume of effluent going to the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, no, let me finish. Yes, within the permit limit. The town is permitted to put a certain.
I'm not talking
amount-
about that point.
But but you're advocating that the town should not utilize their permitted volume to make a difference in the estuaries, to improve the health of the estuaries as soon as possible. You're advocating not to do anything. You're advocating not to do anything and to defer things so that the estuaries don't get better in any way, shape, or manner while we worry about phosphorus to Crocker Pond, while we're still working within our discharge permit.
But the
Okay?
discharge permit says specifically that phosphorus is to be monitored
What's your plan?
because of concern.
What's your plan for making the estuaries better, Ron? You wanna
My
talk
plan
about
for
that?
the plan would be that you don't want to cause harm and improve the estuaries in one place
Sewers
and
will
cause
improve.
harm in another place.
You have to trade off sometimes.
Okay, so therefore, we would possibly sacrifice the water quality in West Falmouth. That's what you're saying?
I did not say that. You
Well,
said that.
No, you just said, you have to trade
not
off.
arguing.
All right, let's keep it simple. What is the trade-off, Steve?
I'm done. Say what you want to say.
I'm asking questions.
You've said that you would like this board not to vote to support Article 15.
No, all I'm asking is, just answer. You're saying a trade-off. So we would be improving the water quality in
No,
Great Pond.
I'm not engaging in what-ifs, okay?
No, I didn't say what if. You just said it would be a trade-off. It'd be improving Great Pond and harming potentially the West Falmouth surface waters.
Don't know that we're harming West Falmouth. That's your contention.
No, I'm saying my contention is the phosphorus level and quantities may increase
That's your
to be
contention.
harmful.
That's your contention.
And we do have, the town collects data to look at that.
I'm on the verge of ruling you out of order because you're talking about something, what-ifs, and you're talking about something that I don't have any information in front of me. I'll tell you what. I'll put you on a future agenda to talk about phosphorus, okay? Would you like to be on a future agenda to talk about phosphorus, if that's what you want to talk about?
What I'm talking about is fulfilling the
Yes or no?
requirements.
Yes or no?
Under.
Yes or no? You want to be on a future agenda to talk about phosphorus?
That would be another thing to talk about, besides this particular article. You're saying there's a trade-off. As long as the town knows that there's a trade-off of improving, as you said, one area and possibly for harming the other, as the discharge permit says, is a risk.
I will take the position that putting the sewers in under Article 15 will improve water quality in a defined location. I will take that position. Do you not believe that building the sewers will improve water quality in portions of Great Pond?
I assume that's the intent. We haven't seen it in Little Pond yet, but that's the intent. And maybe it will work, and maybe it won't.
This was a yes or no question. Do you believe or not believe that building sewers in the area that Article 15
I
will
don't
cover
know.
will, okay.
Because Little Pond has not improved yet after 6, 7 years. So the thing is that we
You know,
have.
Steve, turning the meeting over to Ron. I don't want to sit here and argue with you, Ron. You want to give me a call, go for a cup of coffee and argue with me? Give me a call.
Okay, all right, okay. So those, all right, so those are two, okay. Maybe you've already talked about the financing part, but I'll let you, the $50 million versus the $60 million that you're requesting, the $50 million limit versus the 60, but you can, I'll leave that, because I see I'm sorry you're upset.
This is a straightforward procedural vote. I allow people to have a chance to speak. I try to keep people on topic. You wanted to go to someplace else and wanted to argue with me, Ron. I'm sorry. Anybody else care to comment? Sure, Malcolm.
Malcolm Donald. Can you tell me what the projected increase in the annual wastewater treatment costs will be as a result of Article 15?
No,
What do you mean, no?
I cannot tell you what it will be.
Oh, can you get that information
I
for us?
don't know. I could put it on my list of things to do, and I've got nothing else to do.
Well, doesn't that directly impact the passage of Article 15? It's very pertinent as from what I can figure.
Okay? I don't have that information.
Can you get that information?
I don't know.
Okay. And what will be the average cost to a homeowner to hook up to the sewer?
Matt, do you have you asked the same question, and I responded to you. I gave you data from Mara Vista. Do you have my responses with you?
Those answers were incorrect. That's from 15 years ago. The current data that I got from the Cape Cod Chronicle said it
You need to come to
What?
you need to come to the microphone. So I just want to point out that you folks are being argumentative about the substance of this article,
You know,
not whether or not we should.
we're
vote.
not trying to argue here, we're just trying to get some information. And, I mean, you work for us,
No, I'm a
and,
volunteer. I do not work for you. I'm a
Okay, you volunteer your time-
I'm a volunteer on this committee.
Excuse me
And
a
I,
second.
and I work for the Board of Selectmen, but I have provided an opportunity for people to speak. And I am getting a little frustrated because some of you tend to abuse that, and I would like to stay on topic, get through this meeting, and get out to the precinct meetings.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Steve, that the public, asking questions that are pertinent to this section of sewering so they can make an educated decision about an article that is going to consume 1/3 of our town's capital project budget. So, yes, some of these questions might be annoying to you, but not to the homeowners that this is going to affect. Now, your answer, when you asked me a question specifically, I'm gonna address that question specifically. So yes, I sent a list of questions, of 28 questions to this board to be answered. You answered them to the best of your ability, but some of your answers are incorrect. You referenced the installation cost from the last section of sewering, which was 15 years ago. As all of us know, the price of materials, labor, and everything has gone up. The most recent numbers were from a Cape Cod Chronicle article that I took the answers from. They said a sewer hookup with a grinder pump was going to cost $16,000 to $25,000 per home. There was such a difference in that number because if that home didn't have sufficient power in its electrical panel to support a 220 grinder pump, that electrical service would have to be upgraded. So that's like a $10,000 to $13,000 upgrade. But a regular straightforward grinder pump would be like $16,000 to the homeowner, because the grinder pump itself is $10,000 right now. Now, the town of Falmouth hasn't discussed if they're gonna sell those grinder pumps to the property owners at a reduced price, because back in the last section of sewering, they bought large quantities of grinder pumps and then offered them to the homeowners at a reduced price. These are very prudent answers. I'm sorry you're annoyed. I believe it's you that's being argumentative to the public, but I'm not going to we're not going to sit here and argue, but we don't want to be portrayed as being argumentative when we're just trying to ask simple questions to the public entity that's in charge of this section. Thank you.
So before town meeting, will you be able to provide a projected average, projected increase in, no, sorry, an average cost for the homeowner to hook up to the sewer? So people so the town meeting members will know that and the public will know that?
The information I have available to me is the relative cost ranges for what happened in the Mara Vista system, which I have provided to Matt in response, and Matt has his own numbers.
Well, what did you provide to Matt? That doesn't help the general public here. I mean,
You asked if I would have numbers by town meeting. I will bring those numbers to town meeting.
all right, great, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Further comments? Okay. There's a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Comments from
Anything
from
from
the
the board?
board?
Oh, sure. Comments from the board. I'm sorry, thank you. I forgot. I'm not perfect.
I'll start it off and try to be very brief in the interest of time, which is extremely important this evening. The last sewering was 10 years ago, not 15. Hookup costs that I know, personally I hooked up, gravity system, one of the most difficult in the Heights because of depth required, because I had a basement bathroom. I spent $7,000 to dig and pipe to the street. The betterment cost was just over $13,000. The first estimates of the betterment cost, a couple of years before that, when it was being ballparked, was $18,000. It got down to 16, and then actual after costs were finalized was 13. Range of cost to individual homeowners was all over the place. If you throw in a lot of landscaping, it got prohibitive. If you had a simple one, I know someone who's put in one of the first grinder pumps, which was supplied to the homeowners at no cost. They weren't buying them at a reduced cost from the town. They were given them by the town of Falmouth. That is the fact. Anything else is conjecture and nonsense. I know someone who put in a grinder pump. He had the 220 already available. His hookup cost him $3,000 before the town gave him an additional subsidy with surplus funds from the article. Some people spent $20,000. In fact, that individual who spent $3,000 to hook up spent another $10,000 or $15,000 because he wanted to redo his backyard where he had to destroy the old septic tank that was buried under a patio, hardscape that he had put in. It's all over the place depending on what you want to do and what you currently have. It can be very low or it can be very high. That's all.
Steve?
Nothing from me.
Okay. So while he was talking, I had a chance to dig through my notes. I found my response to you, Matt. Your question 10 is, what is the cost to hook up the sewer on top of the betterment? And my reply was, no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong. Question 10, what is the cost to hook up to the sewer on top of the betterment? I said costs vary. I said for reference, the average cost based on available data in the previous Mara Vista project was $3,828 for a gravity service connection and $5,219. Those are averages. The low for the grinders was $3,850, and the high was $7,600. And for gravity, the low was 2,000 and the high was 6,000. So if you care to take those numbers and escalate them between using consumer price index or something like that, for construction costs, that would probably be a reasonable number. Tom?
No, I'm set.
They all passed. We all passed.
Okay? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, thank you. Kristen, I guess you get this one because Ken's down with the flu.
I mean, I sent the board basically a summary of the 2 grant programs that we've been talking about. So the first one we applied for in October, that was the Natural Resource Nitrogen Sensitive Area. That was a call put out by the DEP. Falmouth submitted 2 applications. This was intended to be a planning grant. So the first application was for the first watershed permit, which was Little Pond and Great Pond, basically to do an evaluation of what might be missing from the current watershed permit requirements, from all of the previous planning documents. So that's the big part of that one, as well as going through and calculating and determining the updated nitrogen loads. Again, that's another big part of the watershed permit application requirements. The other application that was put in was for some planning elements for Magansett, Fiddlers, and Rands. That was not to put together a comprehensive package, but to, again, look at calculating the updated nitrogen loading to those, and just putting together some planning elements. So we found out on March 13th that the town was awarded both of those grants. They have to be finished by the end of fiscal year, which is the end of June. So it's a very small window to complete the work that was proposed. And that work is distributed between ScienceWares and GHD. So in that packet, I basically gave you the scope for both of those projects, and I also gave you the direct requirements for the watershed plan from the regulations. The next funding opportunity is the National Estuaries Program. That is the project we are looking for the Snug Harbor PRB. As we discussed in one of the last meetings, we were invited to submit a full proposal for that. That is due on Friday. I've been working with Ken and Ed and Isotech, putting that together, and we are just waiting for one more review of one more piece, and it will be submitted. So we are on track to submit that. And according to the funding agency, notification will be mid-May.
Excellent. On the NRNSA grants, for those of you listening, this is Mass DEP funding back to help out the communities who are in the nitrogen-sensitive areas. A total of 8 grants were issued. The highest amount went to the town of Dennis at $175,000. The lowest was to the town of Barnstable at $37,615, and Falmouth fell just about in the middle at the $94,000 mark. So they distributed money to a number of the communities on the Cape, and the benefit of that is that over the next 6 to 8 or 9 months, we should be seeing more data and information from our neighboring communities about how they're approaching the problem and what solutions they're finding. Steve?
Do you need, does your application have to be reviewed by town management before it gets,
The select board approved us to apply for the program when we were submitting the letter of intent. So we do need a representative signature, and the director of DPW has agreed to sign for that.
Tom?
Thank you.
Will you be using Chris Neal's Coonamessett River nitrogen data in the modeling for Great Pond?
That's a GHD question. They're
Well,
doing that aspect.
Yeah, just,
Potentially.
We'll take note of that, yeah, that's.
yeah,
that's
because
pass
his
along. Yep.
numbers,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
showed some very important things going on.
Good pickup.
I mean, the first thing they're gonna do is get parcel by parcel water use data for
Yep.
the town.
Right.
That's first and foremost.
My point, and I've made this several years in a row now, intermittently, is the input from the Coonamessett River dwarfs anything coming out of septic systems, right? Now, already the present modeling says it's 55% of the loading in Great Pond. And Chris's numbers show that it's probably 2/3, and I'm guessing it could be 3/4 of the nitrogen load. I mean, I haven't looked at Chris's numbers in a long time, but it's pretty important, I think, that they look at his numbers and the flow rate of the river.
All right. The next item on the agenda is to request this board support the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition. They've got an MVP grant application in. Z. Crocker and the rest of them have got, I think it's 60 acres or so that they want to convert this cranberry bog back over, and they're pursuing a grant. Not exactly the Coonamessett sort of thing, but the same sort of scale. I feel comfortable with supporting them because they've supported us.
Yep.
And so I would ask for a vote that this board supports their application.
So I'll move that we support it, and if there's a second, we can discuss it.
I'll second.
Okay? All right. Any discussion from the board?
What amount are they looking for? What's available?
I don't think we got those details, did we?
It's not an insignificant number. I think this is similar to where we were at with the PRBs. You know, it's several $100,000 of work, and they're just trying to get to the next level on this program, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't given the ask details.
What's the granting entity again?
I thought I'd sent this around. Have we not sent
It's
this around?
Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness, so MVP.
It's the state, or,
Yeah, it's the state. Yeah. It's more vulnerability than clean water per se, but it will will improve the water quality in the receiving body down below. I unfortunately did not print it out.
Just a quick question. It struck me there's a lot of similarities to the Coonamessett Restoration Project.
Yeah.
And there we've got a couple of years now under our belt. There's water sampling that occurs. Are the learnings being transferred to this project so that things that work well are incorporated, the things that didn't are known to the folks who'll be doing this?
I will say that the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition is aware of the Coonamessett work. How much there's been a one-on-one transfer, I'm a little unaware, but I'm making a note to, next time I correspond with Z, ask him if he's got that information and if there's anything we can provide him. And then reciprocally, just like we heard about the Schubel's Pond project from him, I would expect that he would, at some point as this moves along, be willing to come before us and say, thank you for your support, we got our grant, and here's what we're learning. Okay. Any other board comments? Okay, comments from the audience? Okay, all those in favor of supporting the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition's MVP grant application signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Reports of members and staff. Anybody got a burning desire to go first?
I can
Tom?
speak pretty quickly, I think. Chairman Rafferty and I went to the Falmouth Shellfish Advisory Committee meeting last week. I'm a regular member, and Steve wanted to get his feet wet, I guess, to coin a phrase.
They put out quite a spread.
They are very, very concerned about the outfall, given recent history of closing of shellfish areas across Massachusetts based on new techniques which involve modeling water dilution characteristics instead of going out and taking hard samples of water samples and soft tissue samples of shellfish to find out if there's some issues of contamination. In the recent past, basically the entire watershed around Ipswich has been closed, and I think even a small area offshore. But,
Definitely a portion going down the Ipswich River.
and then a very large area in Plymouth Harbor, but maybe going a little offshore there too, outside the harbor. And last year, there was a closure of a big section of Buzzards Bay, which affected both commercial harvesting and aquaculture projects in Buzzards Bay. So they are very worried about how the state might respond to this outfall. And the good note is the state people are using Jim Churchill's models, which is the same model that we're using to model water dilution around the outfall. I guess I would say right now there's a bunch of skepticism. The committee is reaching out to Division of Marine Fisheries, or the people that make that decision here statewide, to get some feedback from them. They apparently had no idea this project was in the works, which I find that very hard to believe too. But the woman that does this, I can't remember her last name. Chrissy something, said this was the first thing she'd heard of anything of a project in Falmouth. And so I think there's some miscommunication somewhere. But anyway, it has come up, and I've been approached privately by shell fishermen and committee members. And then, of course, last week in the committee meeting itself, a bunch of skepticism was voiced, wanting to know what the consequences might be if the state steps in and says we're going to close some areas to shell fishing. And I don't know, Steve, if you want to add anything else to that.
The only thing I would add is, the people on that committee, they apparently trust Christie to draw the line wherever it's going to get drawn. They said that more than once. Christie knows this stuff, she draws the line.
Right.
We pointed out, though, that right now, within the modeling we've done, the magic sort of initial number to work on is 1,000 to 1. They said, Christie will go to a third of that, depending upon the location. Anyways, we've used 1,000 to 1 in our modeling. We make 1,000 to 1 within 30 to 40 feet of the outfall. In Plymouth Harbor, where the outfall comes into Plymouth Harbor, which is inside an enclosed bay, the zone to get to 1,000 to 1 is 2 miles by 3 miles, or hundreds of times larger than our initial zone. And similarly in Ipswich, because the river never gets to 1,000 to 1 dilution ever, the entire river is shut off, okay? I think they understood that a little bit, but they were sort of deferring to, they would like to hear or know more from Christie as they go along.
So we've sent a joint letter. Are you on the distribution list for that or not?
No?
Okay, I am. And as soon as we hear back from her,
Yeah. I would suggest you include Amy on that letter, since she's coordinating interaction with the state agencies. We have a point person at the DEP that's helping us with all the different people we've got to talk to.
and Amy, I know you've got to rush out of here tonight, but we'll talk in the next day or two. You need one more project.
Steve, one slight correction. I believe R1 to 1,000 dilution is within 300 or front.
I'm sorry, I dropped it, 300, but not 2 miles by 3 miles.
No, and in both cases, it's strikingly different from our situation and what's going on in Vineyard Sound.
Yeah.
Most dramatically in the case of the Ipswich thing, because it's way upstream inland, draining into a very small, constrained watershed.
And very large, productive, soft clam shellfish beds.
Yeah,
But you're proposing very clear, direct, and soon communication with fisheries, right?
We are already in
yeah,
communication with
we've
fisheries.
already sent them a
Okay?
letter.
There's a slight disconnect between who the shell fishermen talk to and deal with, and who Amy has been dealing with, and we're just going to make sure that everybody is communicating fully as we go forward. I spoke for you, Amy, is that okay?
It's fine.
Okay. Other reports of members and staff?
I
I was
have your
just-
slides. Do you want them?
Well, in the interest of time, I
No,
can
no,
just-
we're good. we need to get out of here 20 of 6 to be able to make precinct meeting.
Your chance, John.
Huh?
Then when he's finished, I'll.
Yeah, we got time, yeah. Hold on.
Is there going to be any report from Steve about the pilot project?
We haven't had a meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Meeting is next week, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to report on the latest information from the marine borings. Now they moved to a phase of onshore drilling at Kite Park. The map shows B1 location, which was just completed yesterday, just prior to lunch. And I'm happy to report that no boulders were encountered. The sediments continue to be various types of sands with admixed small pebbles. As we go deeper in the section, we encounter silt and mud. So basically, the observed sediment distribution fits the geologic model for, how the glaciers formed Cape Cod in this part of the Cape, the Western Cape. The predictive model that was developed about a year ago was spot on, and I think everything that we were hoping to find in terms of the sediment distribution occurred as we were hoping, and the drilling of the outfall pipe should proceed, I think, pretty smoothly. That's the bottom line. I just want to give people who are not familiar with what happened with the drilling with the onshore location, just to give a quick overview of what was done, just so you have more familiarity as this happens in the future. So the yellow star represents the stake location. The truck drove out, I guess it was Monday morning. It's a truck-mounted rig. There's a support truck, too, that carries water that's used in lubricating the drill string. And basically, the first step in this drilling is to pound in the casing. The casing is a 5-inch steel tube. I think it's about 5 or 6 feet long, and it's just pile-driven into the soft sediment. And that forms a protective barrier between the actual drill bit and the drill string and the outer soil that surrounds the pipe. That's done pretty quickly in the shallow section. It gets a little bit slower as we go deeper down. Once the casing's in, they drop the drill string in with the carbide-tipped drill bit at the end. You can see that here where I'm pointing to. And that cuts down about 3 feet into the soil section. At that point, they switch out the drill string, they take out the bit, and they put in what's called a split spoon sampler, about a 4-foot metal pipe that's hollow, that's actually driven down in 6-inch increments, and that's used to calibrate the properties of the soil, the number of strokes of the pile driver, which is this heavy blue metal cylinder that's poised above the actual split spoon sampler. It's driven in a series of strokes. Those strokes are counted. The number of strokes it takes to drive the sample 12 inches is what is used to calibrate the properties, the mechanical properties of the soil. The soil is then extracted, sampled. The driller shown here takes it apart, hands it to the geotechnician, who then describes it, puts it in jars, and that's sent off for further testing. So it's a very efficient operation. These guys completed it in a day and a half. And all the drilling is now done, so there will be no more borings in support of the outfall project in this location, and everything was done, I think, pretty quickly, very safely, and with minimum disturbance to the site. You can drive by Kite Park now, and you probably wouldn't know that there was an actual drilling taking place there. So that's the
One quick comment of, when we design sewers, we go out and we take borings or probes for the sewers. Typically, those borings are in the 25-foot range or whatever. These borings were 100 feet, so it was 4 times further down, which is why it took a day and a half. Whereas if anybody had seen when they took borings on streets, they might get 3 or 4 done in a day, depending upon whether they were 10-foot borings, 15-foot borings, or 20-foot borings. So, similar process, though.
That's it.
Does the casing is just the top 5 feet?
No, they case
keep
down,
adding.
in this case, in the onshore borehole, they case down to 70 feet. At that point, they switch over to a bentonite mud system, which then is shot down the drill string, and it lubricates the hole and forms a cake around the inner portion of the hole to protect it and to protect the stability. They can't keep driving, it's just too slow a process, so it's more effective to put in this bentonite mud. Offshore, I think they were able to pile drive the casing to about 50 feet before switching over to the bentonite mud system, and then they pull all the casing when they're done. So there's nothing left in the ground.
I'm going to put Ed on the spot a little bit because I already asked him the question. But it looked to me as though they did a good job cleaning up Kite Park. Ed?
You cannot find where the hole was unless you go out there with a magnifier. And, great job, and, 70 feet on Monday, 30 feet, I was there. You were driving away in your red truck when I was talking to the tech from GHG. And, you can't find any sign of what was done. One other quick thing I'd add too, just down the road a bit at Surf Drive, Eversource did their pipe for carrying the cables as part of the vineyard system. And in about a week and a half, they did their pilot hole out 3,000 feet. They pulled their pipe back to shore. So if you go to that site now, all the equipment's gone. They're taking down probably the screens now. And all you see in there is this 24-inch diameter plastic pipe that goes 55 feet under the sound, out 3,000 feet beyond the eelgrass bed. A week and a half, it was done. Amazing. So hopefully we would have the same success with the outfall.
Yeah, we should.
Thank you.
Good.
Did you want to say something, Steve?
Yeah, in the spirit of reports of members and staff, there was an email that came around this morning from Peter Johnson Staub that a company in Oregon called 3PO.com is putting on a show in Hyannis that we were invited to, but it's the same night as town meeting, so no one's going. And it's my position that they're trying to sell us something. That's pretty uncontroversial. So it's their job to come to us rather than us to go to them. And I don't think what they're proposing makes any sense for Falmouth. But I throw this out in case anyone wants to look into it, or it might give them an idea for something else. Basically, they're trying to sell towns sewerage as a service. And they have two schemes. One you could call sewers on wheels, where you have a collection pond in each neighborhood. Picture getting this past town meeting. And then their tank truck comes and empties that and takes it out to the wastewater treatment facility every once in a while. So you don't have to pay for the pipe, but you have to pay for the trucks and for their profit. And their other scheme is the idea of putting fiber optics in the ground at the same time that you put sewer pipe down. And of course, that's not complicated at all, trying to combine all the politics of fiber optics with all the politics of sewers, and that's all I want to say about that.
There's already so much sewage on the fiber optic cable coming into my house now.
Wow.
But I mean, it's a real company, and I mean, they're not idiots, and they're apparently talking some towns into this.
Check into them. I would like to provide a very brief update. I got an email from Representative Vieira's office just prior to coming into this meeting. I have not yet opened it up. But if you recall, we had conversations about refundable versus non-refundable tax credits, and Dave has sponsored a bill. One of the steps was for the House Counsel to look at the concept and put wording to it. I believe I have a copy of it now in hand. I'm going to share it with Jonathan. Steve, if you want a copy, I'll share it with you. I can share it with any other board member that wants to see it. But to a certain extent, Jonathan's been a little bit on the point with this, both between Fernandez's office and Vieira. So, you know, I think we have wording together now. Some people have gone to look up that bill and have seen that it's kind of a blank bill because it was a placeholder till now. And that's all I have on that. Okay. How about we vote the minutes of our meeting of March 5th, 2025?
I move that we accept them as written. subject, of course, to what Tom will find.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. There's been a motion made and seconded to accept the meetings. Are there any additional corrections or comments? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now let's move on to the 19th of March, a day we'll all remember well. It was a beautiful day. It's a fabulous day. Anybody want to make a motion to accept the minutes as written?
So moved.
Anybody care to make a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded
Have
to
one
accept
correction.
the meetings, okay?
Item 3, update on Snug Harbor. First paragraph, program has resulted in an invitation for foreman to submit a full proposal. It was to Kristen. She was the applicant of record, so the letter went to Kristen, not to
Okay.
foreman.
So noted, that's good. Any other corrections? Tom's looking at his papers. By the way, Kristen, are we allowed to come back to minutes after they've been approved, like in a subsequent meeting, and amend them? Does anybody know?
I
Yes,
don't see why not.
you can.
Yes. if-
You can?
if-
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It's good to know. All right.
Actually, there's some minutes from 2017 that I would like,
Item 6,
if
All right.
memory serves.
We'll put it on the next agenda. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
One abstention. I wasn't here.
Yeah, that's right. John, did you get your, I did send you a list of town meeting members? Yeah, okay. I guess I'll just take a minute here. I've reached out to everybody on my list, getting generally, people that are in favor of the article have positively responded to me. I think there's a couple people that are not necessarily advocates, but still ask them for their vote. I hope everybody's been making progress on their list, and look forward to getting through town meeting.
I'll move adjournment.
Okay?
second.
All right, there's been a motion made and seconded for adjournment for which there can be no discussion under Robert's Rules of Orders. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 New world's record.